Seems legit.
Good morning, legitimates, and happy pattern release day. Today, this is my new pattern. It is called the Possum pouch. This one is obviously for me, can you tell? Green and silver and fabulousness. So this one is today's video. We have done it in all vinyl, which is the trickiest way to do it, but I just thought we'd do it to prove a point. And then I have also done this fabulous sunflower one, as well as this fabulous one with the black accents. These two are essentially the same, just in different fabrics, but it does look very different in different colors. It is a pretty simple pattern to follow. It is just a bit trickier with all vinyl. So if you're new to sewing, I do suggest the fabric option, which is in no less way awesome, as you can see here. And we've done the fabulous strap. So we've got this extra little strap thing going on here. It's a fabulous strap accent. Again, you can skip that, but I do think it makes it a little bit extra fantastic. So let's get going. Alright guys, let's crack on. I have all my hardware. I've also decided that I'm going to put a tag on it. I don't know if you can see that. I did laser it myself. And I have got all of my bits. Now, a couple of things about this. If you're on a domestic, do not make this machine out of all vinyl. It won't work out for you. It gets too thick. I'm doing all vinyl today to prove that it can be done. But ill-advised. Also, because it is so thick, none of my lining pieces have interfacing. This is quilting cotton. I have deemed it thick enough just to let you all know that that is the plan. I've also clipped a bunch of them together with some clips just so that I can grab a pack and know what I'm up to. So, let's start with this. This one here is our front slip pocket. So you are going to need the lining piece, the exterior piece, and one of your 1-inch accent pieces. That would be these ones. The other one is for the back slip pocket, if nobody took that as an obvious sign. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over, and I'm just going to finger press it in half and make a crease. This is just going to ensure that when I fold it over and place it, the crease will sit at the halfway point, making it much easier to accomplish this. Now, if you don't want to finger press it, you can also use a roller. I got this one off Temu. So you would hold it and then roll the crease, and it just helps to give you a crease. If your fingers aren't strong enough, these are a great alternative. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this wrong sides up and this right sides up. So we're making this the finished look. If your patterns are directional, please think about that. Mine aren't. What I am going to do is just baste these together. I'm going to go on a nice long top stitch and just make sure that these don't move. Like that. It's just easier to have them not moving. Now I'm going to do this in a decorative stitch length of 4, just because I like the longer look. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fold this in half, and it should fold right on the crease that you just made, and then slip it over the top. Like so. And then starting at one end, I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch from this side of the accent. I'm going to stitch and back stitch because we want to lock it in. You don't have to do a lot of back stitching to make that effective. 1 or 2 stitches is usually enough. I have decided that this will be my new bag, because it's all green and this is fabulous. So now we have that, and the back is also stitched, and it's pretty evenly stitched, if you can see that. And the front looks pretty. So now we need our little corner accents. You could have put them on first, but it's also just as easy to fold these up. And I have a sneaking suspicion I left them over. I did, over there. I have them. I'd say that one day I'll be organized, but we all know that's probably a lie, and that's okay. So we're going to grab 2 of these. The easiest way to cut them is to cut a square and then just cut them diagonally. You waste less doing it that way. I'm going to take some double-sided tape, flip them over. You don't need a lot, just enough to kind of hold it in place. As you can see, this was the curly end of my vinyl, so it is moving a little bit. If it wasn't curling, I possibly could get away without the double-sided tape, but why risk it? So I'm just going to peel the backing off the double-sided tape. This is the tape that I have on my website. It is actually the same tape as the Garner Sewing Room in America has, and I have to say, so far it is my favourite double-sided tape I've ever used for bag making. The one at Spotlight's okay, I just find it doesn't stick as much or as well. So that's what we're doing, making cute little accents. I'm going to start on the angled line that we're going to see, and then I'm going to base the edges on as well, just to make my life easier later down the track. So again, I'm doing 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And the way I'm gauging that is my foot here. I'm doing it halfway through the thickness of the foot. That's just how it works for me. I am also going to stitch these two edges, and now it won't be able to lift later, which is important because if you skip layers, they hang out and cause havoc. So now that it's all the way on, I shouldn't have any issues. Let's do the same to the other side. Turn, needle, always have the needle down when you rotate your stuff, otherwise it can become unaligned. Obviously these two lines don't necessarily matter, but it's still nice to have it all behave itself. I've also made sure I didn't stitch that down. Isn't that cute? So that is now our front slip pocket. You can also put embroidery. This is the perfect size to be able to do a 4x4 inch embroidery in here. I kept that in mind when I was designing the pattern. Embroidery is fun. I like embroidery, so I made sure the pattern could do it. This is our back slip pocket. I can tell because I designed the pattern. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to do it a different way this time, just in case you want to. I've also tried to keep this green line roughly the same on the front and the back. So if you were worried about stitching this, what we can do first is put the accents on and then sew it together. I mean, it's an either or. There is no right or wrong way. Just because my pattern says to do it in a way, I try to make them cohesive front to back, top to bottom, in to out, or out to in, whichever way I write it on the time. But that doesn't mean you have to build it like that. You build the bits you like first. I'm pretty sure my pattern actually has the strap first, and today I'm going to do the strap last. Honestly, each to their own. Alright, so they're stitched down. I'm going to start here and show you a fun little trick. If you have the same issue I have, where sometimes you backstitch and your machine decides to eat everything, you can also do it this way, where you start at this end. We're going to go down. You won't see these stitches, so it doesn't matter if they're not straight, but it is a nice way to practice. Alright, and then you can just continue all the way along to here, if that's more your jam. Turn, up. Again, you won't see this corner anyway, and then we can stitch down on the angle. So that was just one continuous flow, if you prefer to do it that way. Obviously we stitched a little bit in here, but it wouldn't be all that much different than having tails. So, I mean, each their own. You can also skip these accents. If you decide that this is too much fabric for you, you can just skip the accents. It's not going to hurt anyone or anything. You can also not tack it down like I did earlier. Honestly, options are endless. I'm about to sneeze again. I can't tell if it's my waking up sneeze, because it's like 6 a.m. by now, or if it's my I'm about to have hay fever all day sneeze. It could go either way. Okay, so I've got my crease. It doesn't need to be a big crease. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see that. It doesn't need to be like a full-on I stay folded moment. It's just enough to hold it in place. And so then we're going to go down, stitch, back stitch. Fold it under, over, and then under and over. And back stitch. And that is now our back slip pocket. They're both built the same. The back, always make sure that your back actually is stitched down. I have done it once or twice where that wasn't the case. So that's back and front. Now we can take actual back. And these are my D-ring connectors. Now, I have recently made the switch to skinnier D-rings because I've decided I like them. You can still use 3/4 inch or 1 inch or whatever floats your boat. I am using 5/8 of an inch or 15 mil, depending on which way you want to look at that. Because I think they're cute. I have them in abundance. I actually got rid of all the other size D-rings in my house. I will now only exclusively be dealing in these unless I buy like a hardware kit from someone. It is a personal preference though. This doesn't mean that you have to go, oh my god, I hate 1 inch and I'm going to get rid of them all. It's just my choice. So, I've put double-sided tape down. And then I'm going to fold both sides into the center. The downside to my current plan is that it makes it more tricky to fold in because it's so small. So if you're using leather, these would be a nightmare. Just saying. This vinyl's quite pliable though, so it's fine. Also, if I was using leather, I would probably glue these with like a leather glue. Make sure they were dry. So I do this first, let them dry, and then stitch them down. Much, much easier. Now, my preference is, I always do, this time I'm going to do 1 inch. So I measure on my table 1 inch and put the ring there and then fold that over. So the actual foldable space is slightly less than 1 inch. But it's still enough that I'm going to be able to stitch it down. That's how I work that. But you could make them longer or shorter. It actually wouldn't affect it. The reason I made them this long is if we had them the whole length of the bag, that's more thickness to sew. And it's already pretty thick. So I didn't want to push my luck on that. Okay. Happy days. Now I need a ruler and something to mark it with. This is a friction pen, which I love. Love my friction pens. I've decided this is the bottom, I think. Or is that the bottom and that's the top? I mean, I won't see that bit, so let's have green at the top. I'm going to measure in and down 1 inch, and I'm just going to put a dot. Then I'm going to move across and just draw a little bit of a line. That's where I want it. I could actually do it this way. So if I move this the whole 2 inches, I could do a dot at 1 inch and then a bit of a line. Don't make your line too long, and do make this erasable. You don't want to see this later. Blue doesn't go with my green. Now, if you want to, if you struggle with these moving or whatever, when you sew them, what you can do is put a piece of double-sided tape down the center. I'm using the 1/8 inch. It just needs a little bit to help kind of hold it. Oh, I think it's going to be a hay fevery day. How annoying. So I'm just going to put this down the center like so. And this will just help keep it where it was, and so it doesn't twist and we end up with things like this that are crooked. Because that would annoy me. And then, and then I'd have to unpick it, and I just don't want to. So, to place this, I am going to put the vinyl part here at the lineup, like that. So the line and the edge corresponds with the vinyl, not the D-ring. The D-ring part's irrelevant. I'm going to start at the bottom here. I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch, stitch, back stitch. You can also, instead of doing the back stitch, pull it through the back and tie it off. I must admit that is neater and also more time consuming. So take your pick on that one. Needle down, pivot, across we go. I only got like 3 stitches, and now I'm going to reverse. And the reason I'm going to reverse is if I went this way, I'm sitting on the hardware with my presser foot and the stitches never come out properly. So this way, by going backwards, we get neater stitching. I promise that is a thing on this particular machine. That might not be the case for yours, but for this one, 100% it is. So we're going to go into that first hole and then back stitch. Like so. Trim, trim. All the tails. Fabulous. If you're making these out of fabric, if you decide fabric's your jam, just make sure that you tuck in the raw edge at the bottom as well, or you'll have a fraying section. You don't see most of these. It's more of like an eye illusion that it kind of trails into the bag, because once we put our back slip pocket on, you don't see where they start. So they could start or stop anywhere you like. If you're someone that's going to put a lot of weight in your bag, you could even make these a bit longer. Also, if you're going to make these super heavy, if you plan on like going rock collecting with this bag, I may suggest putting interfacing on your vinyl just to make it extra hardy so that you don't break your bag while using it. I'm rough with my bags, but this size bag I won't be putting a whole lot of weight in. Unlike my Empress, which I took shopping and totally filled it, and I overfilled it, and I actually have slightly torn one of my strap connectors. So I plan on fixing that. I might even turn it into a video on how I plan to fix it. It was not the most ideal situation, but I knew what I was doing. I put too many liters of milk in my bag. Like, it was full of like 6 cartons of milk. That's too much. Too much. Alright, so now we're just going to line this up. Now, I've cut my pattern wrong. I knew I did that and I just forgot to fix it before I started. If anything's longer or you've miscalculated, as a slip pocket, it's fairly forgiving, so you can just trim off any excess. Whether you overcut the vinyl or the lining, doesn't matter. Alright, so this is where it's going to sit. Very cute. I am going to add a few clips to it. And then we're going to baste it together so that it becomes one piece. This will help avoid issues later. I do love a good bit of basting. The other thing you want to make sure is when you do this, you don't want to be pulling this side up so that it's crooked. See how that's crooked? It would wreck your whole day. So you want to make sure that they are in fact even. And if you need to take a ruler to it, 100% do. You won't be able to move it later. So I'm just going to... It's just occurred to me I'm doing all of the like large style stitching at the same time, which is fine. I don't know why I started with the back and not the front. I think it's just because it's the pieces I grabbed. Alright, back stitch out of habit. Now I'm going to fold down the D-rings. And I'm going to grab the other smaller accent pieces, which I know are in here. There we go. I'm going to grab one of these. And that goes up here. So I am going to put a little bit of double-sided tape, just a little bit to hold it in place. This is my 1/8 zipper tape. I'm not sure why I'm using that, not the bigger one, but whatever. It's fine. So this also is optional. It just makes it prettier, in my opinion. So I'm going to place that where it needs to be, and then we're going to top stitch the bottom edge only. And it should clear all your everything. Now you can stitch this on first if you're worried, but these should be down far enough that it shouldn't matter. That is your back piece 100% completed. I'm not doing the top edge just because I don't need to, but you can if you want to. Just make sure it's right on the edge. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. Let's go back to the front. I should probably install my... Oh, that's the wrong one. I actually don't know if I want to install it here or up higher. No, I think I'll do it here. So I've got my little tag. You can get them in all different bunches, like sizes. I've got a lot of square ones as well. I just changed my logo according to this. So this one, I've taken it out of the circle so that you can see it better. Some of them I've done in a different style writing. It's personal preference. So I'm going to grab my ruler, find the center with something erasable in case you get it wrong. There's the center. So then I'm just going to put that right there, just a little bit down from this top edge. Now you can kind of eyeball this however you want. There's not really a right or wrong way to put in one of these. I'm going to use my pen knife because it makes me happy. And I always have the blade facing up, and I'm going to stab at the bottom and work towards the top of the hole. If you've done this on, if your bag is fabric and not vinyl, put some fray stopper there to stop the fraying. That's why it's called fray stop. My personal favorite at the moment is, and I probably will never change, fray lock. It is not liquidy like the other ones I used to use, so it doesn't kind of go everywhere. You don't make a mess. It's like pasty. It's more like a glue and less like water. So I've stabbed it through. I'm going to grab my gasket for the back. And then I'm going to fold them in like so. You can also fold them out, but I've recently discovered that if I use my pliers and fold them in, I get it flatter. You just don't want to scrape it. So I'm just going to squish it like that, and I find I can get it quite flat. So now I've got my logo. This is where I would put it, unless you've got embroidery, and then I would move it to the top. You don't want to take away from the embroidery if you've done embroidery there. But I haven't, so it's fine. These pieces are the rest of the front. We're going to need our other skinny accents as well, because they all go on this too. And again, you can skip the accents. I just think they're pretty. I like pretty. Pretty's my jam. So, I'm going to take one accent. This is the bottom. This is the top. And the reason I'm doing it that way is because then we'll see more green. Because this will go over a lot of the white. Not that I don't like the white. I think it's very pretty. I am most likely going to make myself a matching full set. I just need to pick a wallet. I've been thinking on that the last couple of days. I don't know what wallet I want next. I've also eliminated some cards from my wallet, so I possibly don't need a wench this time around. I might pick something else. Don't know yet. Don't know. So I'm just going to line this up along the top edge, like so. And then I'm going to stitch, might even do it this way. I always like to have the bulk of the bag out of the machine. I only stitch the bottom edge. stitch. Then I'm going to grab this piece, which is pretty much all white, because it's the top. I could have just also fussy cut this and done a strip of green, but I have a bit of a flow attempting to happen here. So I'm going to put some double-sided tape on here as well. And these go both sides of the skinny bit, which is why I'm not too fussed that it's white. I have enough green accents going on here. I really don't want to have a hay fevery day. I just sneeze all day. It's horrid. Sneeze and sniff. Line that up at the top edge. Now if I was production sewing these, I'd sew this one of these, and then that one, and then back to this one, but I didn't really think about that, so it's fine. See, look at that. Fabulous. So this is the other place you could put your tag, right in the middle there if it's a skinny one. I'm going to go a little bit further, and then I'm going to cut this off so that the weight of that is not getting in my way. Now that I'm here, we can needle down, pivot, jump across to this side, like so, pivot, make sure it's lined up correctly. Also, don't sit like this. Sit with your arms in, otherwise you get bad shoulders and necks. Played that game before, and it sucks. And backstitch. Fabulous. So this is now going to be the front. This is basically the zippers sections along here like this. So now that we've got our accents on, we are finally going to go to a 2.5 stitch length. We are going to take, you should have 2 pocket pieces here and one slightly shorter than the other. The short one is for the front and this one is for the back so that they line up. And then I have more tips and tricks about that in a second. Now you can put a zipper all the way to the edge. You could just grab zipper and off you go. I don't want to do that today, but you could. I have at the start of the, oh actually I don't know if I've got them. Sometimes I did a custom order, but I think I've posted it already. And she didn't want the zipper tab. She wanted the zip to go the whole way across the top with nothing in her way. So I did put the zippers into the seam. And it can be done, but I think they look nice with the tabs, which is why I'm doing them, I guess. I'm cutting my 2 bits of zipper I'm going to need, because these will have zipper tabs on them. And I'm going to put the zippers on now, because we're doing zipper tabs. And it is very easy for me to forget. I did it the other day, so now I'm being conscious of it. I also still later, not now, later I might still laser something onto my zippers. I've got a few options for what I want to do to the zippers. I love these because we can clip stuff to them and I haven't been doing that. So I've got some options. Option 1 is a metal dangle because I have packets of them. Option 2 is a strip of beads, but probably not. Option 3 is laser them and leave them blank. And option 4 is actually to get some of this vinyl and feed it through and then stitch it so it's a cute little tab. Don't know what I'm going to do yet. Okay, so now I've got my zipper tabs and we need the lining ones. Where are my lining ones? Found them. They were hiding in the tub. Anyway, I'm going to chain sew these just because it's easier. So I'm going to put right sides on both sides of this. Line it up. Stitch it down. And then grab the next one. So again, right sides together. If your tabs are directional, think about that. Mine aren't, so it doesn't matter. Then we're going to flip it to the other side. Grab these, stitch them down. Grab the next one, cut it off. See how now we don't have all these tails we have to worry about? Even on a single bag, you can still do this production style sewing. Alright, I'm going to go up to 4, which is today's decorative stitch length. And then I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch. I'm not even going to back stitch. This is all going to go into a seam anyway. You won't see much of it. Pull it back. Try and pull them back so that they're even too. That is something to think about. Because you can pull them back and they'd be uneven on the other side, and that creates more dramas later, which we don't want. You could also make your tabs shorter and your zippers longer if you prefer. I like them this length, that's why it's in the pattern, but it is quite flexible. I wouldn't make the tabs bigger, but you could make them a bit smaller if that's more your thing. So we're going to take just one of them. They are both the same, so it doesn't matter. One's for the top, one's for the front. So you do with that information what you will. I'm going to take this and then I'm going to check which way it's closing. I always like mine closing to the left. And then I'm going to flip it down and match it up that way. I'm going to clip this too, by the way. I like lots of clips for this. Like that, and then I'm going to grab my lining piece, which probably needs an iron now, but whatever. It will still do just fine. And then add it into the clips. Like that. So back to a joining stitch length of 2.5. We're going to switch back and forth for this, but you'll be fine. We're going to stitch. We're going to back stitch. I'm also surely going to run out of bobbin thread soon. This was not a full bobbin when I started. We're going to go slowly, and I'm doing 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm now up to the zipper pull. So I'm going to move all these layers and lift up the presser foot and zip it up where we already were so it doesn't get in the way of our stitches. That's not what we want at all. Stitch and back stitch. Done. And now I'm going to go up to a 4 stitch length. I'm going to finger press that down, flip it all the way over. Now this is a thick seam, but just grin and bear it. I promise it'll look pretty. So now I'm going to fold the seam down. You'll need to finger press this because it's got vinyl in it because of our vinyl accent, and I've done double vinyl. So it is a bit thicker, but you can do it. I have faith. It's just a bit thicker. And then we're going to stitch with a 4 stitch length at 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to stop with the needle down and then readjust. I'm basically just pulling on the lining to make sure that it's not bunching up behind everything where I can't see it. And again, if this is too thick for you, you can just skip the accent. I just thought it was really pretty. Ta-da! See how I've pulled it down so it's nice on the back? It's nice on the front. Happy days. So now I'm going to take this, again, if this is directional, if you've got a print in here, make sure that it's facing the right way. And then again, we're going to pull this down. Clip it in place. I like to do the 2 edges first and then fill in the center with clips and such. Also make sure you're actually catching the zipper on the back. And then we're going to take our other giant pocket, which goes this way, and add it into the clips. Again, edges first, then the center. And then back to a joining stitch length of 2.5. We're doing 1/4 inch seam because you won't be able to feel the zipper at the start because we've got zipper tabs. So you just need to know. I'm also going to zip that down out of the way so I can do some stitching and then move it back up. Needle down. Now I'm going to lift the presser foot, zip it back up. And back stitch. Because we always back stitch. So now this time, we don't have to worry about the pockety bit. We just want to fold up this piece, which theoretically will be easier. Alright, I just need to make sure I finger press it so it's that way. And then up to a 4 stitch length so that all our top stitching is the same. You could do all of the top stitching at normal stitch length if you wanted to. Just be aware that you want it all to match. So whatever you pick, you need to continue with that all the way through the bag. Back stitch. Isn't that pretty? So now you can just stitch it along the bottom and tack those pieces down. The zipper, the sides will get caught later. But one of my testers did point out to me that if we stitch like an inch and a bit up from the bottom, we can actually keep this out of the bottom seam allowance. So let's do that today. This is not in the pattern, normally you would just join it at the bottom. But fun little moment. Oh, I just ran out of bobbin thread. I knew it was coming. At least it happened there and not on some fabulous top stitching. If anywhere, sewing a inside pocket shut is the best place to run out of bobbin thread. I always have issues when I pick them up. They come undone. It's this magical skill I have and I hate it. Half the time I drop them. It's even worse. Alright. Let's try that again. Stitch, back stitch. I go over some of the old stitches as well to make sure that everything stays where it's told. Trim off all of the tails. And so now I can cut this off. And we will have less bulk in our bottom, like our final seam that we do. That was brought to my attention. Yes, I have now wasted like an inch of fabric, but it's an option. So now you can see when we get down to this bottom corner, we're going to have less bulk in the corner. And again, you can cut that to any size. Make sure your zipper works. Beautiful. So that is the front and, oh wait, I lied. That's not the front and the back. We've also got to add this on. Now it's looking fancy. Thought it was missing something. It's because it was, because I'm an idiot. Now I'm going to capture these side bits and now I'm just going to baste the pocket on. This is where it starts to get thicker. But I'm not worried because I have made this in all vinyl for a custom order and it looked awesome. So actually I think that's the one in the instructions. Now that I think about it, I think it was. Stitch, back stitch, happy days. Boop. Front. So now you've got your slip pocket with your tag, zipper. Pop that aside. Let's do our lining. Our lining's pretty quick. And then we've just got joining and strap. So these are my two lining pieces. Again, there is no interfacing here because otherwise it would be too thick to sew later. And personally, I don't think you don't always need it. Sometimes it is quite important to have lining in it. Like quite often I do interface my lining pieces, just not on this size and this style bag. It doesn't need to hold its shape at any point. Therefore, I didn't see the need to do it. Probably should have re-ironed them though. I'm going to do that in a minute anyway because I've got to iron something else. So this is a Tory pocket because we all know I'm obsessed with my own pocket. Whatever, it's fine. So I'm going to line this up in the center. So I've got a center snip here and here, and I made a crease so I can see where the center is. You can also tell by the amount of excess on each side, whichever way you want to do that. I am on a 2.5 stitch length, and I've eyeballed it, but I've done 3 inches from the top, pretty much. I am an 1/8 of an inch out. So we're doing 3 inches down or thereabouts. You can move it up or down depending on what you want. I like to be able to get to my pockets fairly high in the bag, but there's quite a lot of wiggle room for this. Quite a lot. Gonna stitch, back stitch, pivot 180, lift this up, jump over to the other side line. We're only stitching the long lines. I used to stitch the short lines as well, but this actually works out better. You get less scrunching in the corners. Nobody likes scrunching. Doesn't look good. Now, if you wanted to as well, you could add a zipper overlay here. If I was going to do one, it would just be a plain square one. I do have all the other options, but you don't want the ends to be too long because it'll go into the sides of the bags. I'm probably not even going to do one. I haven't cut one, but that doesn't mean to say that I won't change my mind once I've ironed everything. So I'm going to fold it in half, cut in the center. I do like zipper overlays. I think they're pretty. I do think it also goes with the theme of the bag. But I don't know. We'll see in a minute. It also often depends on your lining. This is quite a busy lining. You want to cut triangles at the ends, and I like my triangles long. Lots of people cut little ones. Personally, I hate little triangles. It's much harder to pull them out and be stitched down when they're tiny. You gotta like fiddle with them. Making them longer makes it way, way easier. Now, this needs to be pushed through the hole, like so. And then I like to hook my thumbs in the side. I do this every time on and off camera. And then that will be ironed flat. But because I have to do more ironing, we're going to do more stitching now and then go to the iron. So that's the zipper pocket. This is the little phone pocket, which I think is quite adorable. So there's just 2 squares the same size. We're going to put them right sides together. We're going to leave a gap. So if you're new to sewing, mark your gap so you don't stitch past it. Always leave it in the middle and not a corner. I'm going to leave like 1/3-ish. And we're going to stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. And this perfectly holds your phone. I will be making myself a template out of acrylic this size because I feel like this is a very useful pocket to have. And I can add it to pretty much any bag. Back stitch when we get back to the mark that we did. That's why we mark it. It's just less thinking ultimately because you start at some lines and you stop at some lines. So if you're forgetful and sometimes you sew them up and forget the gap, lines or pins to signify the start and the end. And if you pin everything with actual pins, use red pins at the start and stop and then coloured pins for the rest. Or plain pins or whatever you've got going on. Same principle with clips. If you've got colourful clips, use red clips at the start stop and all the different colours for the other bits. Your brain will eventually pick up on that. So I've now just trimmed off the excess at all the corners so that it turns through nicer. And then I'm going to gather it up and push it through with my thumb. Like so. You can use your finger to push out the corners, or if you've got a turning stick, you might want that. You've got options. But we should now just have a slightly smaller square. Ta-da! I'm going to go and iron this pocket flat, this flat. I'm going to iron the other lining as well, just so it looks pretty. Everything is ironed. Looks awesome. This is ironed flat. I also ironed my other piece. Steam is your best friend when ironing things. Just if you didn't already know that, I shoot lots of steam at things. I don't have it all the time because I'll burn my hands that are in there. Yeah, so this we feed into both sides like so. Push down. Done. Happy days. I'm gonna again have it closing to the left, which when we look into the bag, this is going to be the back wall. So looking into the bag, the zippers will go the same way. That's just something I like to do. You don't have to. If you like your zippers closing to the right, cool. And sometimes if you forget to make your zippers go the correct way, that is okay too. Been there, done that. Honestly, not the end of the world. Alright. So we're going to get to here. I've stitched this half. Now I'm going to lift up my presser foot and push the zip over there out of the way. Best way to describe that. Lay this down. Along we go. Needle down. Pivot. Pivot. I'm also going to grab this bottom tail. Make sure it's not getting stuck in anything. We're going to stitch all the way back to the start, and then I'm just going to back stitch once I've been through one of the previous stitches. Because I pulled this out of the way, it's not tangled, and I love that for me. So now, if you lift this up, it should perfectly fall in line. That's why I love this pocket. I worked out the maths and I never have to do it again. So we're going to leave the bottom of the pocket open, because that's where I want my final seam, so that we don't see it in the bottom of the bag. You can see it in the bottom of the bag if that's easier for you. I mean, world's your oyster, you do you. But that's one interior pocket done. So now I'm going to grab this, and the first thing I'm going to do is where the join is, I'm going to top stitch it shut. After I sneeze, apparently. Oh. Yep, hay fever day for me, apparently. Lucky duck. So this is both top stitching as well as closing that hole. It is important to do. Do not skip it. Then I'm going to grab something erasable and my ruler, and I'm going to rule down each side. Like this, and like this. What this is going to do is help the pocket easily take your phone. So I'm going to fold the lines so that I can see them on top. That's why you want something erasable. You can also just iron those, and then we're just going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch from the fold. And back stitch at both ends to make sure it doesn't come out. To make this pocket stand out more, I could have also put a vinyl accent on top. I did think about it, because I'm just obsessed with the whole accent thing in this bag, apparently. Is an option though for you, should you choose to do it. It'll just make stitching it a bit trickier, so on a domestic I would not recommend. So now I've got a pocket that's going to sit out about that much. We're going to take our last lining piece, and I'm going to fold it so that we get a crease so I can see the center. And then I'm going to eyeball it and then get a ruler just to make sure. But we want to go about 3 inches down. Oh, would you look at that? It's like I know stuff. And that means it'll be in line with the zipper pocket. That's why I'm doing that, to make them both the same. But you could skip it if you really wanted to. I also want to make sure that that's exactly in half. So if you fold that in half and put it on the half line, you're good to go. So that is where I want my pocket to sit. Easiest way to do this is literally trace around your pocket with something erasable. And I say that because you don't want to trace it out of something not erasable. That would be disastrous. Right? Make sure you've got your bottom nicely marked, which is important for later. Okay, lift the needle up, move that out of the way. So top edge goes to top edge, and then I'm going to open this out so I've got the flap. I'm going to line it up with that bottom line and the side line, and I'm going to stitch with 1/8 of an inch. Back stitching at both ends, as always. This is not one of those pockets that you want to go all the way around with. You want to do each line individually so that the bottom is nice. Trust me on that one. So then we're going to flip it. We're going to open this flap out and line it up along the bottom and the side as well. And we're going to stitch the side. The bottom gets done last because it gets folded in on itself. Alright. Trim that one and this one. So you can see now it's going to sit up. So now we just need to fold the bottom down so it's on itself and in line with that bottom line. This is why we make sure we draw a bottom line. It is quite easy for it to sit out of place, so you need it to be on the bottom line. And then again, we're going to stitch, back stitch, stitch along the bottom, and then back stitch at the other end. Ta-da! And now we have a pocket that perfectly fits your phone and sticks out enough that it's easy to slot into, which is the other important part. Awesome! So I'm going to take my front panel and I'm going to take my phone panel because I want those to be back to back so that when the bag is open, right, see how now all the zippers will go the right way? So I'm going to take this, and this is the best way to always do it. Sit it the way you want, so I want them all closing this way, and then flip those edges that touch, need to touch when you fold it over. Took me a really long time for my brain to get around that when I very first started sewing, because none of the things that I saw explained it that way. Now that I know that way, it's an automatic response to my brain, apparently. So again, we're going to clip it down, and then I'm going to grab the lining piece and add it in. You can clip all 3 pieces at once if that's your jam. It is not mine. I like to do them individually. It just, I don't know. I find it ultimately quicker. Excellent. I'm going to move that so it's not in the way. Then we're going to stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance because it's a zipper section. And the reason I say that is because you can't feel the zipper at the start because we have zipper tabs. So it's just something to think about. And backstitch at both ends. Today, apparently the song in my head is Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes again. Alright, so now we're going to fold seam allowance over vinyl and then top stitch. And I'm going to move my clip so I don't knock them all. I'm also going to fold that over so I don't hit things. Right. And back stitch slowly. This is thicker. I do not want to snap a needle by back stitching too fast. I have done that before. It's why I am conscious of it in the first place. And backstitch at the other end. So we haven't stitched the lining because otherwise we get weird bits in the corner. So that's one side done, and you can now see all our zippers are the same way. Make sure your D-rings are down before you come and add this. And then we're going to clip it at both ends and join it in the middle. like that. Happy days. You can then flip it over if that's easier. Oh, hello, child. Right, clip's done. Given something to entertain my child, so we're good for that, hopefully. Who knows, he might still come back in yet. I try to get up early to get the videos, but sometimes he's just an early riser, let's be honest. Alright, so we got stitch, back stitch. Always back stitch. I'm going to take this off and trim it. Trim any tails you see along the way. I'm going to move my clips so I don't knock them, because chances are I'm going to knock them. Back up to a 4 stitch length, and again we're just going to fold the seam allowance down and then top stitch. Now this is only tricky a couple of times. You get used to it pretty quick. You do have to get your fingers pretty close to the needle though, so for those that are paranoid, maybe the accents here are not your jam, or just make it in fabric and not all vinyl. This is the trickiest way to make the bag. The only way to make it more tricky is to do it in leather, like thick leather. I would not recommend that, if I'm honest. At all, in fact, would not recommend. Back stitch, trim the tails. There are no, oh no, there it is. There's one tail at the other end, the other one got sucked in somewhere. So, I'm going to open this about halfway. I do not want this to be able to get anywhere near the end. So you don't want it all the way open. You are much more likely to stitch it into a seam when it's that close. So we're going to put both of them kind of in the middle so it's not an issue. Same with the inside one. If you put all your zippers in the middle, there is absolutely no way that you can accidentally sew them in a seam, because I do see it quite often where people have that drama. So let's skip it. Back to the clips. I am going to do the bottom edge first. So what I really want to do is line up those accents that we stitched on earlier. Now you can see it's going to be quite thick here, but it's less thick because we don't have this pocket, so it's 2 less layers if you want to think of it like that. Alright, then we're going to flip it to the side, and I'm going to line up the side accent. Even though it's the same piece, we're still going to line it up. Then I'm going to come up the top, and I'm going to make it so that both those top accents also touch each other, and I'm going to push the zipper tab towards the lining. You can push it towards the outside or towards the lining. It's a personal choice, I have found. I'm going to do it to the lining today, and I'm going to put a clip on it. Then we just need to add the other clips together. So it looks like it's going to like have a big hole, but once you actually clip it, it's not gaping at all, which is lovely. I'm going to line up the side, the bottom of the lining, sorry, not the side. I mean, it is the side. It's the side of the lining. You don't need as many clips on the lining because it's flimsier and easier to move about. And then we're going to do the other side. So again, I'm going to come up and line up those accents, pushing the zipper tab towards the lining. And then I'm going to come down and line up that bottom accent, because again, that's what we want. We want it to be pretty. We want it to line up if possible. And then see how it looks like it's not going to join? I promise it will. Just got to squish it together, because there's so many layers trying to fight for whatever it's fighting for. See? Done. I'm not even going to put, I'm going to start here. Now normally I tell you to leave a gap in the bottom. We are actually going to leave the whole bottom open. I am just going to start at the side. So we're going to start at the lining. We're going to go down, across the bottom, back up, and leave the whole bottom open. That'll be the easiest way to turn it through. Be the easiest way to do a lot of things, actually. Now I'm doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but you can actually do less. It's just more tricky. most of what we've done today, seam allowance hasn't really mattered because anytime there's a zipper involved, it has to be 1/4 inch. So I haven't really needed to worry about seam allowances until right now. So I'm going over that quite slowly, obviously. Same with here, because it's quite a bit of a chunky bit. Slow and steady wins the race, especially when it's chunky. There are many, many layers going on here, so there's no rush. And there is a lot of layers. So this bottom corner is where domestics won't be able to do in all vinyl. I am aware of that, that's why I've told it several times. But I have made this bag in several fabric options that you saw at the start, and it does look amazing. So don't be deterred. Also, you can skip those triangle accents if you want to. They don't need to be there. They don't do anything other than look pretty. So again, if that's too much chunk, just take them off the pattern. There are so many ways to make this more sewing friendly. I just pulled out all the bells and whistles to make it as epic, and then you can choose which parts you want to do. So if you want to make yours in all vinyl, you might want to, I mean, if you've got a machine to do it, by all means go ahead. I managed just fine, but you do notice that I slowed my sewing down quite a lot so I don't snap a needle. Speed and thickness are never friends. Okay, so I got all the way around. If you were paranoid about what thread you're using, I'm not. This stuff they make horse rugs out of, so it'll be fine. But if you were worried, you could go and do a second stitching line. In fact, let's just do it just so I can show you. I'm not worried. This thread is awesome. So I'm going to start just a little bit on here. We're going to stitch and back stitch because I didn't want to have to back stitch on the chunky bit. And then we're just going to do another line slowly right next to this one. It's much easier to do this one because there's no clips in the way this time. But I'm trying to get it fairly close to the first line. This will just give you like an added layer of protection if you're worried about your stitches popping, because it is thick. And if you're using, like, I wouldn't recommend like sewing dress thread for a bag this thick. But yeah, I don't know what thread you're using, so this is a backup plan to make sure that nothing breaks. That's all. You don't have to do the lining because the lining is flimsy at best. You can see they're fairly close together. They're not perfect. I don't even try to be perfect, but they're just a little bit apart. So if your first line of stitching defense fails, you do have a backup without having to pull the whole bag apart. Now we're going to get to chopping. I'm going to trim down all of this seam allowance because we don't need it. It's going to be in the lining anyway. Then I'm going to cut here. Anywhere there's like chunky bits, we're now going to cut the chunky bits out. So here. I'm not going to cut the whole lot down, that's ridiculous. But we are going to do the corners. I'm going to get, where's my other scissors? My favourite scissors to cut out, they are on the floor. I'm like, I had them just before. My purple handed scissors are currently my sharpest. And so that's why we're going to cut into this corner with the sharpest pair of scissors. Because that just makes the most sense. Right? Mainly in the corners. I've got 2 stitches of backup, or like of 2 stitching lines. So I've got a backup. So we can get pretty close to the second line. It's not going to kill you. Just cut out the chunk. That is quite thick. If you have arthritis or something, you may want to do this in like several moments as opposed to just one big, I need to cut everything. Or have super sharp scissors. It's about time I get my husband to sharpen the other ones. It's on my list today. Because he's going to be in his shed today. The inside now looks dodgy as hell, but it doesn't matter. You're not going to see it, and it should make it much, much easier to turn. The other thing that's going to make it easier to turn is the fact that we have not stitched the bottom. I'm going to put my hand in, and I'm about to do this to my finger to open the zipper. And then I'm going to start with the corner. Now, you are definitely going to want a turning stick. This corner is insanely thick where the accent is. I could almost get away with not needing one if I didn't put those triangle accents. But they're pretty and I like them. And again, they do work much, much better with just fabric. The other reason I like the triangle accents is because it helps protect the corners of your bag. So this is insanely thick and I've got the aircon on. So if I can't get it turned through easily enough, I might need to get my hairdryer onto it. It will soften up the vinyl enough for me to get the bag through, because as you can see, it's not trying to be my friend today. Not sure why. Probably because I'm grabbing the slip pocket and trying to turn it through the slip pocket as well. Very real probability right there. So what have we got? See how I can see lining? That means I'm going into a slip pocket somewhere. It's not at all what I want to do. So I'm just going to grab a different bit of vinyl. Okay. I'm going to make you watch me struggle with this. I'm pretty sure what I've done is I've pushed the wrong bit somewhere. See how I can see lining? I'm not sure what part that is that I'm grabbing it wrong. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to reverse flip it again and see where I went wrong. Okay, so we're back to the start. Instead of grabbing a corner, I need to make sure, okay, I know what I did. I grabbed everything through a slip pocket, which is why that didn't work. So now I'm going to try that again. Now I've got hold of the center bottom, not in a slip pocket. So this should go much, much better. The thing with slip pockets, sometimes they just get in the way in the turning process. Oops. This may need some heating. And I just dropped my bracelet. Again, this is why we don't sew the bottom of the bag shut. I'm not pulling with like all my strength either. I do not want to do that to the bag. It will damage something. I'm trying to be gentle and kind of leisurely poke it out as opposed to force it out. Forcing it at full strength will break something. So I'm trying to be quite tactful and gentle. Alright, stick my hand back in. See the corners? The corners don't want to come out because of all that extra vinylness. It will come, it's just a slow and steady process. See, because there's a corner there, and I haven't even used my turning stick yet. Which I should probably get some more of. I think my shop's out of them. I love these things. So now I'm just going to strategically poke at the corner with my turning stick. And again, I might need to get my hairdryer onto this because it is insanely thick, and that is not a good looking corner yet. And then same with the other side. We can also pop our finger under here and push out the side where the zippers are. And then it should look cute like that. Push along the side wall. So there's my accent. It is the accents that make the corners so tricky. But if you've got the patience, they look really good. So you should do it anyway. This one worked much better. Turning stick in, poke the corner. I got most of that out. It's actually not too bad, all things considered. It's all about pushing the right bit. As soon as you put there, it goes. See that? Oh, I saw that. Alright, happy days. You also need to roll these side seams and then Tory squish them so that they get a nice crease and they will sit much, much nicer. So far, so good. Now, you can zip that one up. That one doesn't matter. But our lining zipper pocket, we're going to stick our hand in, grab the lining, pull it through, and then we're just going to stitch it closed. Now, because it's a square or a rectangle, it'll be quite easy. We can just stitch, back stitch, and on we go. Like that. I'm also going to trim off the excess just so that the lining will sit in the bag nicely. Without this excess to clash with the bottom wall, we shouldn't have any weird ripples. Tuck that back in, and then with this pocket, I'm just going to hold it, put my fingers seam to seam, I pinch underneath, and then I'm going to tuck under the raw edge and stitch it shut. And back stitch. I'm going to tuck that in, zip it up, then tuck the whole lining in and push it down to the bottom of the bag. Now, it's not sitting perfectly because, again, I haven't properly Tory squished it. But, and see how the zipper, okay, look at the zipper. See how it's all wonky at the top? That's not actually wonky. What's going on is that I haven't squished it properly. If I now squish that, and you saw how badly wonky that was. Also, I need to push out this corner better because that's not helping our claws here. Again, turning stick and push nicely like that. See how already I've got less of a wonky zip. It's still not perfect, but that's because I need to like properly squish the bag. You are the boss of the bag, not the other way around. But all those accents did make it quite thick, so you just need to be aware of that. Right, you can even kind of, I'm not stretching it, but I kind of am, right? And see now, see with the zipper now? Now it's not wonky. So it's not always you're sewing, sometimes it's you haven't finished because you haven't like squished the bag into shape. Again, see how this has got that kind of ripple? That is because the sides need to be squished and to be told where the seam is. You don't let it decide where the edge is, you decide for it. That's already better. Again, it'll need more, but that is the bag done. I am just going to check on my child and then we'll make the strap. Right, let's get this show on the road. I know it was like a second for you, but I had to go, you know, make sure my house wasn't destroyed. Because as awesome as my child is, he is very likely to trash something when I'm not looking. Double-sided tape in the center, or roughly in the center. Obviously I didn't mark a line. I used to mark the line, I no longer need to. It's as simple as that sentence needs to be. That is not halfway though. I can see my line is going a wonky donkey. So that's the side you'll see. Yeah, it's going to be a hay fever day for sure. We're going to make the little bit first and then we'll go on to the big strap So I'm folding both sides into the center. Because this is vinyl, if I wanted to, or if you're worried about thickness, you could have this just that thick. You don't have to have the folded over bit. It just means that you will see the edges. But I'm not worried because I'm just not. We're going to go up to a 4 stitch length. And I'm going to line these up in the center so they look pretty. Stitch, back stitch. I mean, you could make these straps in the same fashion, but all the different ways. So you could have this and then have it kind of folded double over. You're not going to see these ends, but it's easier to stitch than to jump stitch. So that's our little extra bit. If you wanted to get fancy, you could put your logo here or another tag or like a million other things. I am now going to grab one of my twisties and I'm going to shove this through. Now, just to note, I don't think I put it in the pattern, but because I don't want this to break under too much weight, because again, if you give these away or sell them, you never know what people are going to do. I personally know I am rough with my bags, so I've put a piece of base stabilizer just in the center, just to give it that little extra oomph, I guess, to stop it breaking. So we're going to pull that to the center like so. And then this is going to get stitched onto here like that. So to do that, double-sided tape is, as always, your friend. We're just going to chop off little bits and put it here. And here, like that, and that's going to help it hold in place. So I'm going to peel off the backing of both of them, and then I'm going to line this up right before it dips in so that we get a good amount on, and then I'm going to again do the same thing to this side. So it needs to match. I hand cut these, but there is an SVG file if you wish to cut them on your cutting machine, whether that's a Cricut or a Brother or a Silhouette or a Juliet, or I don't know the other brands, but I feel like that's enough and you get my point. So the idea is that it's going to stitch like that. I am, as always, I'm going to have lots of tail this time. I'm actually going to pull it through and tie it off so it's prettier, because this will be a focal point. So I'm going to start at the hardware end, and I'm not going to backstitch. This is one of the few times in existence where we're not. We're going to stop with the needle down, pivot, come down the side. Ooh. And then we're going to pivot to the point, pivot. Now that we're here, I can pull this through and tie it off. Grab the loop, double tie it in a knot, trim it down. Then we can continue. Now this is quite thick again because of the whole all vinyl thing. You do what's best for you. Into the first hole, pull it out, trim it off. Oh, none of that's stitched. That's problematic. So that whole edge, I don't know why that just happened. Couldn't tell ya. It just doesn't want to play ball. So I'm just going to cut it off. Can't be helped. So now I'm going to go here into one of the few holes that did work, and then go back into that hole. We're going to have to do a back stitch. Very unfortunate. Then we're going to attempt to do that again and make it work. Did that work? Oh, I don't know. That one worked. Anyway, it's a little bit messier than I would have wanted, but I can't help that the stitches just didn't stitch. No logic to it at all. Pull that out the back. Grab it. We're going to tie it off, and then we're going to melt it with my thread zapper. This one is USB rechargeable, which is awesome in my opinion, because how could it not be? It's got to be due for a charge soon, actually. Oh no, it's still got 2 battery. Maybe I charged it and don't remember. Who knows? One end done. The other end, we're going to need our... No, wait. Yeah, no, that's right. Now, I don't have any just rectangles, so I'm actually using a strap adjuster. It is what it is. Right? If I had rectangle rings this size, I would in fact do them. They are on my list of things to purchase in the near future, just not right now. And even if I purchase them right now, it wouldn't help me much. I'd have to wait weeks for them to show up. So strap adjuster it is, but again, you could just use a rectangle ring in the 1.5 inch if you had it. In a perfect world, you use one rectangle ring and then one strap adjuster. But again, I can't help what I don't have. So, we're going to do the same thing again. Except this time, you're just going to kind of have to eyeball it, because there's no dint part to measure up to. But that's cute. And again, you can skip this whole thing. You can make the bag without this if this is not your jam. It will still work out just fine without it. Now I'm going to backstitch because I'm worried that we're going to have issues. We get nice and slowly because it's thick and chunky. This is as slow as I think I can sew, if I'm honest. The only way to go slower than this on this machine is to slow the motor down, which I will not be doing. Backstitch, a little bit, happy days. At least that's stitched all the way around that time, so that's a good start. Except the back has given me loops, and that looks very, very untidy. So the best way to deal with these is literally I am going to melt them off. I'm going to leave just enough that I can melt them into the other thread so that it won't come undone. But ultimately I am just melting them off because they're messy and I don't like it, and I don't understand why it just decided to do that to me. We were having such a good time. Could be a number of factors. Could be tension. Could be it's too thick. Could be my needle's going blunt. Very real possibility on that one. It's probably nearly time I changed my needle again, actually. You're supposed to do 9 hours of sewing on a needle and then change it out. So if you're sewing all day, you should change your needle every day to make sure the end's pointy and we don't have dramas like that. But still, very cute from the top. Now, let's double-sided tape the crap out of this. And again, you could make this thinner by just having the one layer of the green, but you'll have the edge. So you could edge paint it as well. I could edge paint it white so everything matches, or green, depending on what shade of green. Although I don't think I've got light green, I've only got foresty green, which is no help here. So we're going to peel off the backing, hopefully. Funnily enough, the texture of the vinyl has not, like, worried any part of this bag. Like, it hasn't been more tricky because of texture. So if you've never used a textured vinyl before, apart from the fact that it feels different when I do this, the sewing part of it hasn't been any different to my, like, notable knowledge. Like, I haven't been like, oh, the texture's getting in the way. It's not a thing. So if you've been scared of texture for that reason, you think it's going to stitch differently, honestly, I haven't had an issue. I just feel like you guys should know that if you've never played with it before. Different thicknesses of vinyl behave differently, but this is about, it might be a little smidgy bit thicker than the other one, but it's not noticeable enough that it's a problem. And I feel like that should count. And that you should know about it. Okay, that's one bit stuck. Now we're going to do the same to the other bit. Again, if you were doing fabric, you could just iron it, but I'm not. Or I could have, again, not had the edge, had the raw edge, and just cut this half the size and stuck it on top, and it would make it thinner. So many options. I could have done the fancy double fold over. Straps are a personal choice. You just do them however you see fit. I do really love that my new bag is green. Not that I didn't love my horror one. My horror one is amazing. It's good for when I need a big tote. But I find that I'm stuck carrying everyone's stuff when I take a big bag. So I'm hoping the smaller bag will be like, sorry, no room. I don't want to rip it all off because every time I do that, it sticks to the table. It's like this magical skill I have. Not a good one. Okay, she's stuck down. Move that. Now I'm going to stick them both directly on the floor in front of the machine so that it's not tugging out of the way. Then I'm going to line them up with my hands. That came unthreaded. Of course it did. Hasn't happened all video, so of course it'd have to happen right now. Now the other option with this bag is if you want to use larger swivel clips, you just make all the edges the solid shape. These are so you can have a smaller clip, and you could small them again and do 3/4 inch if you like small clips and big straps. But if you wanted to use 1.5 inch hardware for all of it, you would just not do the ones with the cutouts. You just cut this straight and you're good to go. There's so many ways to make this. I've picked the hardest way for camera with the all vinyl thing, and the main hard part about that is the turning. Now I don't have to stitch along the bottom, but I will because it's easier than a jump stitch. And then I'm going to bring all this back, put it down underneath the machine again, and off I go. Stop and reverse. Trim. Now, one vinyl was longer than the other. I just did the width of the vinyl as my strap. Chop them off so they're even. And then, now this strap adjuster, funnily enough, is actually too big. This is a 2-inch one, but I ran out of 1.5, and I only use silver or black, and I felt like black doesn't really go, like gunmetal doesn't go with this bag. I'm not a gold person, so that's why I didn't do that. I did 3 back, 3 forward. That felt like I didn't stitch half of that. Oh, I did. Don't know what the back looks like though. I wonder if it gave me grief. I'm doing the X marks the spot moment. I just ran out of bobbin thread, didn't I? I did. Hold that thought. Okay, you would get away with making this with 2 full bobbins. Obviously that's not what I've got going on. It's fine. It's fine. I will eventually change this strap when I get my next shipment in. Because the 2-inch one's a little bit too big. But in the meantime, it'll be fine. So, backside up, I'm going to go through here. And then I'm going to go up through here. Now this is going to be tight because of all the vinyl, but it's fine. And then down. I always like to kind of put the edge through and then pull it. Again, it is a little bit too big. But I didn't want to put a different colour. I thought that would look even weirder. Like gold would be weird too. So it's fine. And then we're just going to take this end and add our last strap to it. Again, I will fix that when I've got other ones. Always with the double-sided tape, it's helpful. And my child's back. We are back. Hopefully for the last time, but who knows, honestly. So I've got my clip in the middle, and I've got my double-sided tape on. And then we're just gonna stick it down like we did earlier, making sure that everything lines up. Because if it doesn't line up, you'll miss your points on the back. In which case, just do a second line of thread and it'll be fine. So, let's see if it's gonna like me this round. It's brand new bobbin, so let's hope the back stitching doesn't give it another meltdown. Has been known to happen. Needle down, pivot, up the hill. Again, this is very thick. You can also add rivets onto these if you wanted to. Have them riveted and a bit thicker. Very real option. And then just trim that off. That's really going to annoy me because it's too big. But you get the idea, right? Fabulous. And then we just attach it to the back D-rings. We're all good. Like so. I hope that was somewhat helpful with the strap, even though my thread had like a whole butt ton of meltdowns. That's fine. I think the bag came out amazing. This will be my new bag once I get a replacement one of these. I just wanted to show you what it's like. But yeah, the bag is done, guys. There is a link in the description below to purchase the pattern. And to purchase this vinyl. I've put a link for that as well. And yeah, happy sewing, everyone. Bye.